Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today we will handle the second portion of the cataract lectures, that includes detail of the nuclear cataract, its pathogenesis, its management, etc., etc. Just to remind you that in previous lecture we had discussed how a patient of senile cataract presents to you in IOPD. What are the important points to ask in the history? And once patient is with you, what are the important elements of examination? Starting from visual assessment of Snellen chart, examination with the torch to see pupillary reaction to light and to see iris shadow, then distant direct ophthalmoscopy to see the status of the red reflex of the fundus, then detailed examination on slit lamp with and without dilatation of pupil to see the details of the anterior chamber, anterior segment, other disorders. And if we can dilate the pupil and see periphery, we can see the pathology on the back of the lens. Similarly, we can use slit lamp to measure applanation tonometer, intraocular pressure as well. And if cataract is very dense, then we had to do ultrasound B scan to see the lesions on the back of the lens, like retinal detachment, vitreous hemorrhages, posterior vitreous detachments, and macular degenerations and elevated lesions of the fovea in AMD, etc. So, on the basis of that lecture, we should move forward to have some detail of the nuclear cataract. So, objectives of today's lecture are: we should know different types of cataracts and how to evaluate them clinically, and you should be able to identify, diagnose and investigate different types of cataract and other lens disorders and suggest their treatment. You should also be able to know the pre-operative evaluation, very important, pre-operative evaluation of a cataract patient, and understand its importance and significance, because the better evaluation will lead to better visual prognosis. So today lecture or tutorial is basically to discuss these objectives. Now coming to pathogenesis of senile nuclear cataract. As we had already discussed, typically an old person presenting with progressive painless visual deterioration, more severely in one eye than the other in first place, is the typical presentation of a patient of cataract. Now this patient with nuclear cataract, how does it progress? So progression is, first stage is grading, grade 1 to 4. As you see, nuclear sclerosis means density, increased density of the nucleus due to increasing layer down of cortical fibers by the cells at the epithelium of the lens, and they keep on increasing all along the life. As you see here in this portion, this is early cataract that develops in the middle age. Lens from typical amber color to turns to bit yellowish color, and then as the age advances, it converts to light brown, brown, and then dark brown. It varies from individual to individual and generations, and depending upon the patient's geographical residence or area, it varies. These are 4 grades, grade 1 to 4, up to this brown cataract. After that, if the patient is not reporting for management, then cataract becomes more and more dense and it becomes dark brown, known as cataracta brunensis, brunescens. दोनों नाम है इसके, कैटरेक्टा ब्रुनेंसिस और ब्रुनेसेंस. And if still delayed further, it whole complex of the nucleus becomes black and known as cataracta nigra. These two portions B and C are actually hard hypermature senile cataract. 1 to 4 में ये था कि immature से लेके maturity तक था. Beyond that is hypermature senile cataract, maybe cataracta brunensis or cataracta nigra. There are several ways of classification of nuclear cataract, but the best and most prevalent and clinically useful is the classification according to maturity of the cataract. So we classify it as immature, mature and hypermature. I had told you how to differentiate between immature and mature by using torch, iris shadow test and by using distant direct ophthalmoscopy. Now, what is hypermature cataract? Once the cataract is not operated at time and is delayed by the patient due to whatever reason, then it will convert into cataracta brunensis and cataracta nigra. And the other variety is Morgagni cataract, we will discuss soon. Now, hypermature brown cataract. Now, this patient had nuclear cataract but got delayed to report to ophthalmologist. By the time patient reached, what are you seeing with the slit lamp? This is the line of the light falling on the cornea. Then this is black anterior chamber on the back of it, and this entire is the lens. You see a lens capsule, and there is hardly any cortex remained. All the lens cortex has turned into dark brown nucleus. This happens in hypermature brown cataract. There is hardly any cortex left, as seen here. Sometimes the things change. That is, Morgagni cataract is one variant of hypermature brown cataract. What happens here? You see this patient, we have dilated the pupil of the patient, and you are seeing dark brown nucleus settling in the lower portion of the capsular bag. What happened actually? In some patients, entire nucleus does not get large enough to fill the entire capsular bag. So the remaining cataract, cortical matter of the cataract gets soluble and it is no more any solid. So this liquefied cortex makes the nucleus to settle down inferiorly within the capsule. And see, this hard nucleus has developed calcifications. See in this diagram, there are calcific flakes because of hypermaturity. Calcium deposits appear on the surface of the capsule as well in the nucleus itself. This cortex was converted into a solutes with fine soluble proteins, and that's why nucleus settled down just like a sunset. This causes problem in surgery, and only experienced surgeons can do good phacoemulsification in these cases. Now that was all about nuclear cataract. That is primary cataract that has to happen in every person without any known etiology. So it is a primary cataract. Now cataract may be secondary when it is due to some other pathology or other disease affecting the individual. So secondary cataracts, also known as pre-senile cataracts, because they start to appear before the age of senility. Etiology, on the basis of etiology, they can be considered as non-complicated cataract or complicated cataract. Non-complicated cataract क्या होती है कि once the cataract is secondary to some systemic disorders and not due to any ocular pathology, it is known as non-complicated pre-senile secondary cataract. Common causes are diabetes mellitus or other systemic metabolic disorders, trauma, direct ocular trauma, blunt trauma, maybe penetrating injuries, and radiation all over the body. Use of systemic steroids or other diseases and drugs that for that disease may also be responsible for non-complicated secondary cataract. Now, what is complicated cataract? यहाँ आपने difference याद रखना है. What is the difference between complicated cataract and other types of secondary cataract? Complicated cataract is always due to some other ocular disorders. It is a complication of other ocular diseases like chronic uveitis, maybe posterior uveitis or sometimes anterior uveitis as well, long-standing retinal detachment, hereditary retinal fundus dystrophies, high myopia, and topical use of steroid drops for a long time due to chronic allergies or as a treatment of uveitis. So these are the causes of complicated cataract and that is always posterior subcapsular. आगे हम बताएंगे क्यों ऐसे होता है. Now see the pathogenesis. What happens in pre-senile non-complicated cataract? These cataracts are always white cortical cataract as seen in this picture of the patient. Now what happens in these young people? Initial stages that lead to lamellar separation or hydration. The water from aqueous seeps into the lens and causes separation of its collagen lamellae, and gradually they turn into whitish or incipient cataract. Very early stage of cataract, incipient, because it is seen only with the help of slit lamp, and it is reversible at this stage if the etiology is reversed. Like diabetes is controlled, it will reverse. The next stage is intumescent cataract. Intumescence means swelling. Now, due to excessive accumulation of liquid inside the lens lamellae, lens got swollen and it has a lot of complications I will discuss soon. Later it becomes soft, white, mature cataract as in this case. Best treatment is phacoemulsification and foldable lens implant in this disease. The other variety is posterior subcapsular cataract. This pre-senile variety, as I told you, results from other ocular diseases, complication of other ocular diseases, and that's why known as complicated cataract. क्या causes हो सकती हैं? All the pathologies I discussed with you, like retinal degeneration, dystrophies, chronic retinal detachment, or posterior uveitis, they cause vitreous gel degeneration, and as a result, nutrition of the posterior portion of the lens and posterior subcapsular cortex supplied by vitreous that suffers, and this compromised part of the lens turns into opaque lens matter known as posterior subcapsular cataract. That is the way there is difference in pathogenesis of these two varieties of secondary cataract. Now, how they present clinically? Clinically, as you know, the cataract always presents with progressive, painless visual deterioration, but here it will be in a younger patient as compared to senile cataract. And as it matures, like in this diagram, upper left, whole nucleus has turned white and it has imbibed fluid, and due to imbibition of fluid in it, it gets swollen, known as intumescent cataract. तो क्या होता है? This swollen lens bulges forward and blocks the pupil. It comes adherent to the pupil and blocks the pupil and blocks the flow of aqueous humor from posterior chamber into anterior chamber. As a result of that, intraocular pressure rises, which pushes further this lens iris complex anteriorly, and this complex comes attached to the periphery of the cornea. You see here, यहाँ पे iris is getting attached to the periphery of cornea because aqueous is pushing it from behind, also known as iris bombay. So it causes a total occlusion of the angle of anterior chamber, and there is total blockage of drainage of aqueous. It will lead to progressively rising intraocular pressure, and resulting in acute congestive glaucoma secondary to intumescent cataract, also known as phacomorphic glaucoma, because it is due to change in morphology of lens, swelling of the lens. Clinically, how you will see it? You see corneal edema, as you see here. Cornea is not that clear, a bit hazy in all these areas. Intense ciliary congestion, typical red eye, which I told you in the DD of circumcorneal congestion or ciliary congestion. Anterior chamber is shallow. Anterior chamber is very shallow because lens iris diaphragm has come forward. Pupil is semi-dilated and fixed in these patients because of very high pressure. Sphincter muscle gets paralyzed and pupil gets semi-dilated, and it will not be reacting to light, fixed, dilated. And if you measure intraocular pressure, it will be more than 50 millimeter of mercury, maybe 60 or even more millimeter of mercury. This patient will not only be having visual problem, but will be having intense pain in eye, headache, and sometimes nausea and vomiting as well. So this is a typical case of acute congestive glaucoma secondary to cataract, known as phacomorphic glaucoma. Its treatment is same as for acute congestive glaucoma, and once pressure has come down, the next treatment is the treatment of cataract. Now, if the patient passes through this stage of white mature cataract and does not suffer from glaucoma, that happens in certain people, that leads to hypermature white cataract. What happens here? Lens cortex converts into very fine protein particles that pass through pores in the anterior capsule here and come into anterior chamber and start floating in anterior chamber. As a result, the lens matter becomes reduced in volume, cortex shrinks, and folds appear on the surface of capsule. These are typical diagnostic of hypermature white cataract. You see fold and wrinkles on anterior capsule as cortex is shrinking and leaking out of the lens into the anterior chamber. Now what happens next? Once the cortex proteins are coming into anterior chamber, they induce two phenomena. One, phacoanaphylactic or phacogenic uveitis, because these proteins are antigenic and they induce formation of antibodies and they release from ciliary body, and this antigen antibody reaction in anterior chamber leads to inflammatory process, and as a result cells and flare and keratic precipitates can be seen in the anterior segment of the eye. Treatment will be same as that for anterior uveitis. What other phenomena occurs? These proteins have ultimately to be drained from somewhere. So these proteins go there at periphery of anterior chamber and reach the trabecular meshwork of the angle, where they clog the angle. As a result of clogging, the aqueous drainage suffers and intraocular pressure starts rising, and that leads to glaucoma. This glaucoma is known as phacolytic glaucoma. पहले जो बताया था in white mature cataract, that was phacomorphic because morphologically lens was pushing the iris forward. Here it is phacolytic because there is lysis of the lens proteins, and these proteins are blocking the angle and causing phacolytic glaucoma. So there are two complications of hypermature white cataract. Kya? One, phacoanaphylactic or phacogenic uveitis. Number two, phacolytic glaucoma. So you should remember it, because this will be asked in the examination, and these complications have to be managed before surgery. Now, how a patient of posterior subcapsular cataract presents clinically? You will see a young person reporting to you with interference of the vision at very early stage of the cataract, and particularly patient will be having difficulty in reading and writing vision, and more blurring in bright daylight. जब भी पेशेंट दिन में बाहर जाएगा, patient will be having more severe visual interference as compared to dim light. उसकी रीज़न क्या होती है आगे मैं नेक्स्ट बताऊंगा. Generally it is unilateral, but it may be bilateral depending upon the etiology. but always it will be more severe in one eye as compared to the other. If it is due to uveitis, as in most common cases it is due to secondary to anterior or posterior uveitis, we will have to put the patient on heavy steroids. ये याद रखिएगा, we will have to put the patient on heavy topical steroids before surgery, during surgery, and even after surgery. Otherwise, lot of complications can occur. So याद रखिएगा, whenever the patient reports to you with posterior subcapsular catheter secondary to uveitis, always treat the uveitis first with heavy topical steroids and sometimes intraoperative injections of subconjunctival or intracameral injections of steroids, and post-operatively heavy topical steroids and cycloplegics. That is the treatment in these cases, just to make you think in the way of management. Know why the patient get more compromised vision during daylight and during early stage. क्या होता है? You see in this optical diagram, the pupil is constricted, patient is in bright light, so the catheter is present just in the posterior portion of the lens, just anterior to the posterior capsule, and you must be knowing that nodal point where all the rays of light cross to reach the retina to make an image. That point is just located on the back of the posterior capsule of the lens. So this catheter located just anterior to this nodal point interferes this light entry and scatters it, and light disperses all parts of the retina, causing blurring of vision at very early stage, especially in daylight, because pupil is constricted and peripheral rays are not entering the eye. Whereas in lower diagram you see pupil is dilated. In low illumination, peripheral rays enter and they cause some sort of image and quality of vision improves. So importance is the importance of its proximity to nodal point. So that you should remember. That is why it interferes the vision at very early stage. Now that was all about cataract. We will discuss its management soon. What other problems can arise? Subluxated lens, very important phenomena or disorder you see in certain patients. You should remember two things. What is subluxation of the lens and what is dislocation of the lens? As you see in this diagram, subluxated lens is the lens detached from the zonules on one side, but still its major portion is still present in the pupillary area. You can see the lens in the pupillary area. Here is the lens border, upper border, and here is the area without lens, from where lens has subluxated inferiorly. This is subluxated. If the entire lens is dislocated from this place and has sunk into the lower part of the vitreous cavity, you will see only red reflex here and no lens. That means dislocation of the lens. This is the difference between subluxated and dislocated lens. Commonly in practice we see in patient is the subluxated lens. What may be the causes of this? It may be congenital due to Marfan syndrome, Weir-Marchesani syndrome, and homocystinuria, or it may be acquired due to trauma and pseudoaspiration syndrome. Trauma तो blunt trauma होता है, but I will explain pseudoaspiration syndrome in a bit detail. Clinical features क्या होते हैं इसके? Patient presents typically to you after a trauma injury, blood trauma, or some disease with severe visual deterioration and uniocular diplopia. Two images from the one eye, other eye will be closed, and patient will be seeing two images from the same eye because of this refractive status. There is tremulousness of the iris. Iris is tremulous. Once you ask the patient to blink, the iris will be having tremors because it is not supported in that part by the lens on its back, so it will start tremors. And then secondary glaucoma, and patients sometimes develop iridodialysis. Dialysis means total disruption of the zonules in major portion of the lens, iridodialysis. And you see in this picture it is not there, but what happens in iris itself, जिस trauma ने ड्रामा किया था ना, trauma of the lens, that has traumatized iris roots. Iris में जो evulses from its root. So that is iridodialysis. वो भी आपको नजर आएगा in some patients, not all. The treatment in such cases will be naturally surgery with intracapsular cataract extraction and anti-chamber IOL implant. Ask regular physician, I will discuss later. Now, what is pseudoexfoliation syndrome? That is the cause of subluxation of lens as well. It is a condition in which the ciliary body starts producing whitish colored protein particles, and they start accumulating in the posterior chamber, iris, on the surface of the lens, over the zonules, and you see with the slit lamp its deposition on the margins of the pupil. Here white dots on the margin of the pupil on the anterior surface of the lens can be seen. So you can see them on the surface of the iris as well. And if you dilate the pupil, as in this case, this makes a layer under the undilated portion of the iris. यहाँ पूरी layer बनी होती है, and because this causes a partly attachment of this iris to the lens, so this is difficult for the lens to dilate. Many times it is very difficult for the lens to dilate properly, and that causes a lot of problems during surgery as well. And if you see further dilatation or with other measures like anterior segment OCT, you will see deposition of these material on the zonules of the lens, as well as in the angle of anterior chamber, which can be seen with the gonioscopy. You can see at the trabecular meshwork as well. Sometimes they deposit on the back of the cornea as well. So these deposits in the angle of anterior chamber will cause occlusion of the angle and raised intraocular pressure, leading to glaucoma. Secondary glaucoma, previously known as pseudoexfoliation glaucoma as well. So these are the problems. White deposits I discussed you. On dilation of pupil, you will see this phenomena and raised intraocular pressure. Complications, as I told, subluxation of the lens. Lens gets subluxated in one part of another, particularly while doing cataract surgery with phacoemulsification. This can lead to subluxation or total dislocation of the lens because they cannot support the pressures of the phacoemulsification. Secondary glaucoma due to occlusion of the angle, as I discussed here. DD of dislocated lens. Only important differential diagnosis of dislocated IOL implant is from the subluxated lens. बस आपने सर ये पूछना है कि पहले कोई सर्जरी तो नहीं हुई भी, and patient will give history that I was operated and I got some blunt injury. Generally होता है कि the person is playing with the child baby and that may throw finger. Any angle of the lens may be damaged by the finger of the child or any other blunt trauma accidentally, and lens may subluxate from capsular bag to one side. Patient will be having all the symptoms of subluxated lens, and treatment is recentering of the lens by dialing surgically. Next is cataract surgery. Once we have diagnosed the cataract, then we have to go for its surgery. This is the most common surgery being done all over the world after the age of 65, and 95% patients recover with good vision. Remaining 5% have low vision due to surgical complications or due to other pathologies of the eyes. It is very important to have proper pre-operative clinical evaluation of the patient. For that, you need detailed ocular evaluation like pupillary light reaction, I told, thorough examination of the conjunctival sac, examination of the lacrimal drainage system, I will discuss soon, measurement of the intraocular pressure with applanation tonometry, dilate the pupil and see the fundus in detail if possible from the peripheral cortex, and most important is intensive sterilization of the operation theatre and techniques to prevent any infection. On general examination, you should always look for diseases like diabetes mellitus, hypertension, chronic obstructive pathway disease of the respiratory tract, urinary retention, because benign enlargement of prostate and TEM solution used for prosthetic pathology can cause surgical issues. Then cardiovascular diseases should also be managed because they will also lead to some problem with local or general anesthesia of the patient. See the video. Complete examination of the cantilever sac. Here, you avert the lid and see anything wrong with the cantilever. कोई infection ना हो, कोई discharges ना हो, कोई irregular lesion या pathology ना हो. Then you see massage the lacrimal sac and see any irritation. So that is the way you examine this cantilever sac. Next, distant direct ophthalmoscopy.
लेंस दिखा दे
See,
इधर मॉनिटर
the lens is being
ठीक।
this is lens and doctor is being indirect ophthalmoscope on its head that is mounted over there. It is placed between the eye and the doctor plus 20 diopter lens. You can see all the details of the retina from periphery if cataract is not mature. Or you can see the good eye of the patient, other eye of the patient that is not having the cataract or having immature cataract. So you can see such pathologies in the other eye that was operated earlier or that has less cataract, like problem with this patient, exudation. This is the hypertensive problem with hypertension, retinopathy, exudates, etc. Like central retinal vein occlusion, diabetic retinopathy here, retinal detachment, rheumatogenic here, touching detachment or age-related macular degeneration. They can be seen and you can give the patient prognosis after surgery. Pre-operative investigations other than clinical include laboratory investigations like blood complete picture, blood sugar random and fasting for all patients, and glycosylated hemoglobin for diabetic patients that should be normal. Liver function tests and renal function tests are important because diabetic retinopathy is linked with diabetic nephropathy. So they will give clue to diabetic retinopathy if the cataract is mature and you cannot see the retina. Hepatitis B and C are done in routine so that these patients cannot transfer infection from one patient to another by surgical instruments. Other tests are radiological tests I had already discussed. Ultrasound B scan to rule out other pathologies on the back of the lens like retinal detachment, dystrophies, vitreous hemorrhages, etc. And chest X-ray if required in cases of some chest pathologies like tuberculosis, etc. Another very important preoperative evaluation is biometry, that means assessment of the power of intraocular lens to be implanted at the time of surgery so that the patient has normal vision uncorrected without glasses after surgery for distance. There are two main elements that we have to take in account, that is keratometry is refractive power of the cornea and then axial length of the eyeball. Keratometry is measured with the keratometer. Both K1 and K2 are measured and their averages taken. Then axial length of globe or eyeball is measured with ultrasound A scan. This ultrasound B scan here, you are seeing these various echoes. This is A scan and this is B scan of the same patient. So these are various echoes, and with the help of these echoes, we measure the length from anterior surface of the cornea here to the posterior surface of the sclera here. Here are the various echoes. Anterior surface probe is placed on the lid, on the cornea. Here is anterior surface of the cornea, the anterior surface of the lens, the posterior surface of the lens here, this echo, then clear vitreous, like clear anterior chamber, clear vitreous here, no echo, and then retinal echoes and scleral echoes. The image from this to this scleral echo is taken. Normally it is 22 to 23 millimeter of mercury, 22 to 23 millimeters in length. So with the help of keratometry and axial length of the eyeball, we feed these two parameters in various formulae and they give the power of the intraocular lens to be implanted in this patient for perfect vision after surgery. So that was all about the evaluation. Next time we will discuss surgical techniques and their complications. Thank you very much. Read it out, and I am sending you assignment which you will complete it and send back to my PA not later than 5 p.m. Thank you very much.